and Finance Committee meeting. And we'll begin with resolutions. We'll start with RS 2019-1671, sponsor Virture, approves the appointment of hearing officers by the Metro Board of Equalization to conduct preliminary hearings and to make investigations regarding complaints before the board. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1672, sponsor Virture, calls the Metro Board of Equalization into regular session beginning June 3rd, 2019, and special session beginning June 17th, 2019. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilman Glover.
Just briefly, and this is more of a technical question than anything else. Mr. Jameson, do we have a specific time they have to meet in the charter? Why are we saying they have to go back into session like this?
State legislation allows the local legislative body to set the general meeting time scenario. It's usually, historically, it's been a 2-week period, and then the following Monday after that, June 17th, is when we begin historically the appeal session, the special session, so to speak.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Glover. Great question. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1673, sponsors Virture and Roberts, approves a grant from the Axial Healthcare to the Metro Nashville Department for the purchase of naloxone to block the effects of opioids. I think I got that correct. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1674, sponsors Virture and Roberts, approves an amendment to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration to the Office of Family Safety for Victim Service Coordinator positions. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1675, sponsors Virture, Withers, and others, approves a grant from the New York University School of Law to the Metro Community Oversight Board to pay for members of the board to attend a workshop on police community engagement. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1676, sponsor Virture, authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the claims of Monica Blake against Metro and Janet Marlene Perdue in the amount of $150,000. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilman Pulley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't see anybody from the Police Department here, so I'll direct my questions to Metro Legal, Mr. Cooper. And whoever else you want to ask them. It looks to me like, and based on my conversations previously, that we are settling this case because of an issue with our social media policy and the constitutionality of that. Is that correct?
Correct. More specifically, it was the police department's social media policy applicable to their employees that were part of their manual. This concerns some alleged retaliatory action in response to some Facebook posts that Ms. Blake had made in the spring of 2018. And after review, it was determined that the policy that was in place at the time was constitutionally suspect, and it has now been revised to address any issues. But this had to do with the policy that was in place at the time.
Okay. And you feel, does your office feel like the new policy will keep us out of this mess in the future?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. The suit alleges a number of things. If I can read a couple from the analysis: sexual and racial harassment, sexual and racial discrimination, retaliation, racial harassment, retaliation, and discrimination under several different code sections here. So is it your position that absent the social media issue that we ran into here, you would feel pretty comfortable defending this lawsuits against the other claims?
Yes. Many of the claims that were alleged in the complaint fell without fell outside of the applicable statute of limitations. The other claims, discrimination claims, we feel that we have a good defense for those. And Allison Bussell is here. She's one of the attorneys handling the case. We felt like the retaliation, First Amendment retaliation claim based on the Facebook post was probably the one that would end up going to trial on that claim. And if a jury determined that there was First Amendment retaliation and awarded her even nominal damages, Metro would be responsible for paying 100% of her attorney's fees, which, given a case of this magnitude, could be $250,000 to $300,000. So this is really just a business decision to settle it before getting to that point.
Yeah, that was my next question. This is simply a business decision based, as I understand it, solely on our position with respect to the social media policy of the police department. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So the only other thing I want to ask you is, as a part of this settlement, I know that Commander Marlene Pardue was named. Does this clear her of any personal liability moving forward?
Yes, the complaint against her will be dismissed as part of the settlement.
So, and I know she's getting ready to retire from a very exemplary career with the police department. And now, with the settlement of this lawsuit, she won't have to worry about anything moving forward with respect to this suit.
That's correct.
Okay, I have no further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Pooley. Councilman Prodmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To continue on a question about the policy, Mr. Cooper, did the police department have a social media policy prior to this lawsuit?
Yes, it was just we determined that it was likely overbroad. Too much suppression on First Amendment rights, arguably.
So it was too stringent of a policy.
Right.
And it's been revised now.
Yes, it was revised back in February, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Prodmore. Councilman Glover.
So mine is more of a technical question. Mr. Jameson, because obviously we know one of the, well, I don't want to assume anybody does know, but I do know one of the people involved in the name here. Just because we're friends, does it create any, does it create any conflict of interest with regards to us voting?
I would say not, for two reasons. One, if you feel like that friendship removes you from the ability to assess this objectively, that's one thing. But you're simply approving a settlement that both parties have essentially consented to, subject to the council's approval. And by that, you're not exercising favoritism to her favor or not.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Glover. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1677, sponsors O'Connell, Vircher, and others, approves an option agreement between Metro and Cumberland Consultant Incorporated and authorizes the purchase of property owned by Cumberland Consultant. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Are you on this one, Councilwoman Henderson? You just hit it early? We're on RS 2019-1677.
Yes.
Councilwoman Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize. I lost track there. I just wondered if somebody from Parks could speak to this, please, and contextualize this with the larger effort in that area.
She's coming down.
Hi. So, yes, this
Please,
is a...
Cindy, we know who you are, but just for the viewing audience.
Cindy Harrison, the Greenways and Open Space Director for Metro Parks. This is a final piece to the conglomeration of property for Wharf Park down at the Cumberland River. It will allow us to develop the park as well as eventually connect a greenway from that park over in the direction of Browns Creek. So it's another piece in that assemblage.
And I apologize, did you say this is the final piece to effectuate that? or-
Right.
And then can you, for us, just to understand the geographic context of where this is, as far as where Anthus Drive is, what that tees into, and where that is in relation to, say, the current Riverfront Park, kind of where that is along the river?
It is down below Rolling Mill Hill, if that kind of gives you an idea, between Rolling Mill Hill and the interstate. And on the west side of the Cumberland River, obviously.
All right, and so the property was appraised last year for $2,300,000, but we're acquiring it for $2,530,000. Can you speak to that, or is that just, can you speak to that?
It was part of the negotiation. It's within this very small limit we have to go beyond the appraised value, so it's within that 10%.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you, Councilwoman Henderson. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1678, sponsors O'Connell and Vercher, approves an amendment to a lease agreement between Metro and Square Investment Holdings, LLC, for office space in the Washington Square building located at 222 2nd Avenue North. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilwoman Henderson.
Chair Vercher, I have a question for finance, and I feel like we've asked this question previously, and I don't know if it was reported to us in a summary report, but can you all speak to how much space we rent from the private market for Metro offices?
Mr. McGuire?
I think we'd refer that question to General Services. Is there anybody from General Services here? Okay, we can determine that number for you, Council Lady.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate just understanding, again, just the context of the space we rent. I obviously feel like for our Department of Law to be really close by, that's a good thing. But it may say here in the analysis, but the overall square footage of the Washington Square building in total, I see Metro currently leases 66,000 square feet, but what's the total square footage of that building, of leasable space?
Again, we'll have to get that information for you.
Okay. Alrighty, so this, basically at this point, is just renegotiating the rent agreement and the price per square foot, is that correct?
Total.
So nobody's here to speak on this?
Council Lady, it adds some more space that, so that the criminal justice planning unit can take that space and the district attorney can take the space that they were in. I think that's right.
So it's basically a swap of sorts. So who all from Metro is in that building besides the Department of Law, Criminal Justice Planning, and the DA?
The DA has 2 floors. I think that's it. I think those are the only ones that are in there. Most of the building is taken up by private attorney offices.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Henderson. Councilman Cooper.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chair Lady. Just a quick question on real estate for Metro. Is there a plan for all these third-party spaces over time in terms of where they're going and why is it that we rent from landlords? I know the state has had a very careful plan. I think I know the answer, but I think it's always useful to have it for the public.
Councilman, today we cannot produce a document for you with that plan, but we are actually in the process of inventorying and producing a document so that we can start looking at that strategically moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cooper. Councilman Glover.
So I want to do a follow-up, if I don't mind, or if you wouldn't mind. So I have to believe that you guys can anticipate these kind of questions are going to come, and I'm trying to understand why. I mean, these are not real complicated questions. Why are we not ready to answer things like this? Because it does seem like we're spending a lot of money renting space when we are selling off assets. We're talking about buying buildings and spending a lot of money on that. I'm just trying to make 2 and 2 equal 4 here, and it's not coming up where it's equaling 4.
I can take that question for you.
Okay.
The issue here is that there are multiple Metro departments that manage facilities and operations within Metro. It's not like you can just go to General Services and get a list of properties managed by General Services. For example, you can just use the fire department. There are a few fire facilities that the Department of General Services maintain, but the bulk of the fire stations are actually maintained and taken care of by the fire department. And as we begin to gather this inventory of information, we're finding that a lot of the basic information, as you described, is simply not readily available, such as square footage. And in the example that for Washington Square, that is a private space, so we would actually have to go to the leaseor to determine all other tenants within that facility. That's not something that would be readily available to Metro. Now, we know which leases we have in place, and the ones that John Cooper mentioned previously are the Metro departments that are in that building, but in terms of the other floors, that would be information that would have to come from a private leaseor in terms of the occupants of that building. That's not something that would be readily available to Metro to provide to you. So I guess to try to make it simpler, if you will, it's not simple. It's not a simple answer because it's very, very complicated.
Okay, so Chair, prior to us going into the budget season, which we're here, obviously, I would request we're able to see those kind of things to where we kind of get an idea about how much money are we spending, what are we selling, and I'm probably not asking the question very well, but I think that is probably something that'd be good to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Glover. And I also want to add, too, that a lot of the questions as it relates to building leases that we do, that was a conversation that the Blue Ribbon Commission had also. So I just want to let you know that that work, that exploration is being pursued also by the Blue Ribbon Commission. They're going to come before us and do a presentation. I don't have that date yet, but they are going to come before us and do a presentation. Councilman Mendez.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that, I mean, these are all important questions, but on this particular one, we're talking about a 2% increase in the amount of space that Metro's got in the building for a rent that appears facially low for downtown, which I think is consistent with the building. I mean, we got good questions, but this one seems like a no-brainer to, if we're going to increase it by 1,400 square feet, let's just do it.
Thank you, Councilman Mendez. Councilwoman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate Councilman Mendez's point. I don't think anyone is arguing that this is not a good decision to make, but when we have matters like this, I think it's important to bring up the broader context. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Henderson. Always address the chair. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1679, sponsors Vircher Gilmore, appropriates funds from the United States Department of Health and Human Services to the Metro Action Commission to support the Head Start program, disadvantaged children. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1680, sponsors Vircher and Gilmore, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to achieve sustained tuberculosis control and enhance tuberculosis prevention in Tennessee. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1683, sponsors Vircher O'Connell, approves 3 amendments to 3 agreements between Metro and the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation concerning maintenance of closed solid waste disposal facilities. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1684, sponsor Vircher, authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the property damage subrogation claim of MetLife Insurance or Chris Koch against Metro in the amount of $28,542.08. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. RS 2019-1685, sponsors Vircher and Gilmore, authorizes the Industrial Development Board to accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect of Oliver McMillan Spectrum Emory, LLC. I need a motion for a 1-meeting deferral. It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution will be deferred for 1 meeting. And committee members, this is, we're deferring it so it can track with the ordinance. RS 2019-1686, sponsors Van Reese and Withers, and she's here, authorizes the Metro Development and Housing Agency to enter into a pilot agreement and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 3711 Dickerson Pike. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Councilwoman Van Reese, hit your button. Thank you for being here. You want to have some words regarding this resolution?
Absolutely. We're very excited to finally get to this point for Buffalo Trail Apartments. It's just south of Old Hickory Boulevard on Dickerson Pike in the Madison and across from the Bellshire area. We're happy to have some folks here from the development as well as MDHA if there are any questions. This is 260 something. Forgot the number, affordable apartments that the community and surrounding area at conversations during the zoning process wholeheartedly approved. This is a good example of yes in my backyard, and we as a community look forward to seeing it built, and with this, that will make that happen.
Thank you so much. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution is recommended. Thank you, Councilwoman Van Reese, for joining us today. RS 2019-1687, sponsor O'Connell, approves the addition of a hotel property as a qualified public use facility within the MCC Tourism Development Zone, and further approves a master plan supplement and minority-owned business participation plan, and authorizes the supplement and the filing with the state of Tennessee approval. Is this going to be withdrawn?
Sponsor's intent is to withdraw.
Okay, so
Letter.
I don't have a letter from the sponsor.
We could defer by rule.
Okay, it's deferred by rule. Now we're on bills on second reading. Committee members, that was RS 2019-1687, deferred by rule. Now we're on bills on second reading. We're at BL 2019-1560, sponsor Vircher amends the Metro Code relative to the Workforce Development Program. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilman Mendez.
Thank you. So can you, I guess you're the sponsor of this, can you remind us what this does? Please.
Attorney Jameson.
Under the current code, under 2.211, you have a workforce development program that applies where the developer promises to engage in a workforce development plan that engages a 20% minority participation goal. That applies to developments receiving pilot and TIF. The ordinance would broaden that to developments receiving pilot, TIF, or any other metropolitan government funded incentive, including those under 2.210, the $500 per job, as well as participation agreements.
So there was a different, was it a different bill that would make it so there would be only one incentive per project?
Right, and that's been deferred.
That's a different one,
All right.
Councilman Mendez.
Thank you.
I think you volunteered to be part of that committee, too. Councilman Glover.
So very quickly, Mr. Jameson, in the event we don't have enough workers who will, if this passes and there's not enough workers to fill requirements that we keep adding, what does that do to a given project?
So the workforce development program is just the developer's agreement, assurance to establish a goal right now aimed at 20% minority participation, with acknowledgement that they may not hit that goal. We do our best to encourage them and incentivize them to meet it, but with the acknowledgement that if they don't hit it, that doesn't quash the development approval.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Glover. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Bill is recommended. Before we adjourn, just want to remind committee members that we are in the midst of budget hearings. You should have received the budget schedule. Want to continue to encourage you to also make sure that you use the SharePoint drive so that we're all on one accord as it relates to our questions and answers that we're submitting to respective department heads. And with that, we are adjourned.